We are offering a few in-person field trips right now, limiting the number of participants. Watch the website and the e-newsletter. And please, if you register and cannot attend, let the field trip leader know so someone else can take your place as a common courtesy. Now here's an update on our bat house. We installed a 4-chambered bat house at Lake Alberta Park in December, and the project was researched and coordinated by our FSU Sustainability Fellow, Sarah Calzada. She's working with us again this semester to follow through on the project by fundraising and planning a high-quality interpretive sign about bats, which will be installed near the bat house by the city of Tallahassee. So if you're interested in contributing to this project, any amount, you can use the donate button on the website and earmark the project Bat House, or mail in a check to the P.O. box address also on the website. Another kind of neat thing that's going on is that our Conservation Committee Chair, Rob Williams, reports that on January 15th, 2021, Apalachee Audubon filed an amicus brief in the National Protection Act challenge to the Army Corps of Engineers policy for operating the Apalachicola River system. Our attorneys, led by Professor Stephen Rohde at Duke University, represented us pro bono. He did an excellent job, and we are pleased to be participating in the case brought by the Apalachicola Riverkeeper and National Wildlife Federation. For those of you that aren't attorneys, amicus briefs, or a friend of the court briefs, they have to have counsel who are independent of the plaintiff's counsel. One of the purposes of filing amicus briefs is to present a viewpoint that is somewhat different than that of the plaintiffs. In this case, Professor Rohde is explaining to the court that the mistakes made by the Corps in the environmental impact statement are the same mistakes that the Corps has made in other environmental impact statements that have been successfully challenged. Rob explained that to me. I want to thank our board member, Rob Williams, for initiating this and for keeping us updated. I've asked past President Peter Kleinhens to tell you about February's unique program, and then I'll be back to introduce tonight's speaker. Peter?
Thanks, Donna. Hello, everybody, albeit through the screen. We have a really exciting program coming up in February that's going to be part of our Pines to Palms series. And Pines to Palms is a basically partnership between Apalachee Audubon Society and the Old Growth Forest Network. And just for a little bit more information about the Old Growth Forest Network, their goal is to locate and designate at least one protected forest in every county in the United States that can sustain a native forest. So the counties that are desert obviously are out, but they estimate that to be 2,370 counties out of a total 3,140 counties. And to achieve this aim, they work to identify forests for the network, ensure their protection, and inform people of the forest locations. They're building not only a network of forests, but a network of people who care about forests. And in that vein, we reached out to them along with the staff at Wakulla Springs State Park to bring them to this area. And we're going to start with a focus on Wakulla County. And then in future years, we hope to go to other counties in our region of Florida, as well as a couple of counties in Georgia. So as it pertains to us, we're going to start things off at our regular program on Thursday, February 18th with a same time, 7 p.m. via Zoom, with a panel of environmental professionals talking about forest conservation in the area. This panel is going to be moderated by Tom Flanagan of WFSU's Perspectives, and featured in the panel are going to be Terry Baker, who's the CEO of the Society of American Foresters, Chuck Hess, a current and past Wakulla County Commissioner, Robin Will, who's the Supervisory Refuge Ranger at St. Mark's National Wildlife Refuge, and Shane Wellendorf, my boss, who is the Conservation Coordinator of the Tall Timbers Land Conservancy. So other than that panel, we're also going to have 2 forest dedications. The first will be at Edward Ball Wakulla Springs State Park, and that will be at 11:30 to 2 on Friday, February 19th. And that is going to be limited to 50 people, and you must pre-register, and information on that will be, or already is, on our website. And that's going to include a free outdoor buffet lunch. There will be a dedication ceremony, and then there will be a type of scavenger hunt along the trail with rangers scattered along the trail to interpret champion trees, plant and animal species, and other natural features. Ocklawackney River State Park will be our other dedication site, and the day and time of that is to be determined, but it will likely occur that weekend. So that would be February 20th or February 21st. And we'll have details about both and details about the panel on our website, apalachee.org. And I would encourage everyone to also sign up for our e-newsletter that Donna mentioned called the Limkin Times. And if you scroll to the bottom of our homepage on the website, you'll see a spot to sign up. We're super excited about this, and we're thrilled to be able to bring this partnership to you guys, and hope you'll join us. So hope to see you then.
Dara. Okay, I'm back on. Okay, I'm really pleased to have Leigh Davis with us tonight. Leigh is the director of Leon County Parks and Recreation, and she's been serving in that capacity for the last 9 years. Her public service career spans 2.5 decades and includes time with the Florida House of Representatives, the Florida Association of Counties, and over 15 years with Leon County. With the county, she has served as assistant to the Public Works Director, assistant to the county administrator, interim fleet director, and now as the director of Parks and Recreation. She received her undergraduate degree from Auburn University and her master's degree in public administration from Florida State University. We asked Leigh to speak tonight to learn more about the forested parks managed by Leon County. The takeaway for tonight is to get out and try visiting some of these parks. I've been trying out a lot of new places to hike since the pandemic hit, and I've actually, in the last few months, visited a couple of these parks that I had never been to before. Also be thinking about how, as individuals and as an organization, we can help our Leon County parks. It's important not to just have these forests, but to help them get managed, and they need to be managed well. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Leigh. And thank you very much, Leigh, for coming tonight.
Donna, thank you so much for having me and for that introduction. And thank you to the group out there. As Donna mentioned, she did ask for me to speak on the forests of Leon County Park System. And Dara, I'm trying to share my screen. I don't know if you're ready for me to do that. I'm having trouble getting there. Okay. Maybe we'll have some technical difficulties here, I'm not sure. But Donna, again, I want to thank you for inviting me and for the fabulous article that you had in the paper. And that article sharing a couple of the maybe lesser known sites that we have out there in our inventory. And okay, great. I'm trying. Sorry, Dara and I are trying to coordinate on shit. Here we go. All right. Oops. All right, I'm almost here, folks. All right, wonderful. Thank you for your patience. I really appreciate it. And Dara, thank you for your technical expertise in this. So although Donna asked for me to talk specifically about the forests of Leon County parks, one of the things I really like to do when I have the opportunity to speak to groups is talk a little bit first about what we do as Leon County Parks and Recreation. In that regard, I think it provides those of you kind of new to learning about Leon County Parks kind of context for all that we do and kind of where our forest and our conservation lands actually fit into that mix. You know, it's really a matter of breadth of what we do. So we have active parks and passive parks, greenways, boat landings, campgrounds, dog parks, and community centers. For our active parks, we typically kind of define those as anything that has a sports athletic field on it, or maybe a scoreboard. So that's going to be your, you know, your football fields, your soccer fields, your baseball fields, and that sort of thing. Our passive parks are interesting because I will touch on those as I talk about our greenways as well. But they are typically our smaller tracts of land. And frequently we have several around stormwater ponds. And I will kind of get into that a little bit more later. They also include some of the areas along our beautiful lakes and such. We also have our boat landings and our campgrounds, dog parks, and community centers. And then our greenways are our larger tracts of conservation land. So greenways typically are going to be anything over 150 acres or more. Here's kind of county parks by the numbers. This lets you know that the county currently owns and maintains 3,900 acres of land. And of that, 3,400 acres is currently or soon to be open to the public for recreation. And at the end of the presentation, I'll talk a little bit about some of those projects coming up and what we intend to open in the very near future. Again, we've talked about active parks, but we've got 27 athletic fields at 8 facilities. We have 13 passive parks, 6 greenways, 2 dog parks, 24 boat landings, 3 campgrounds, and 6 community centers. So that kind of gives you some perspective on what we're doing with a small but mighty staff of 30. This is just a slide of some of our facilities, forests and facilities around the county. And what I'd like to do now is jump into focusing more about those greenways and passive parks that Donna reflected in some of her article and then asked for me to speak about. So breaking it down again by the numbers, I mentioned earlier, we have 3,900 acres of lands owned and or managed and maintained by Leon County. Of that, I mentioned in my previous slide that 3,400 or so of those acres were actually open to the public. And of that 3,400 acres, a little over 3,000 acres are in the category of greenways or passive parks. And that is currently open to the public or soon to be open to the public for recreation. Now, these facilities are dispersed throughout all the geographic areas of our counties with the 6 greenways, 13 passive parks, and 1 regional park. On those greenways and passive parks, we're maintaining nearly 50 miles of trail. And those trails can range everything from an old dirt clay roadbed, which is our Orchard Pond Trail, to just natural turf, like we have at St. Mark's Greenway, to the types of trail that we've utilized crushed oyster shell on at both Miccosukee and Alford Greenways. And then our more newly constructed single track trail at Alford is also just natural turf. Peter talked a little bit, I think, about some of the conservation lands that we have. And with those, when we talk about conservation lands and in this context of greenways and passive parks, there are land management plans that actually guide us in terms of what we do on these properties. Here on these land management plans, on this slide, I've identified really 4 key areas in our land management plans, but understand that these plans can range everywhere from, you know, a 70-page land management plan to something for our smaller passive parks to, you know, a 2 to 3 page land management plan. But on our larger plans, we primarily look at these 4 components: habitat restoration and improvement, public access and recreational opportunities, exotic and invasive species control, cultural and historical resources. So when we talk about habitat restoration and improvement, 2 main things occur for activities in that regard. We do conduct prescribed burns. I have staff members that are trained to do that. And typically we do that in the wintertime with the purpose of reducing fuels and then propagating the native plant species. We sometimes will also contract out, just depending on our staffing resources at the time. But again, it's pretty awesome that we have experts in-house that can conduct these burns and are certified to do that. We also do wildlife food plots, and that is part of the habitat restoration and ensuring that our wildlife is thriving on these properties. And that's a big driver in terms of how we manage these properties and what we manage them for. In terms of public access and recreational opportunities, under this category, this particularly for Alford Greenway most recently resulted in projects like the 5 miles of single track trail that we just did this past year, along with the new signage that we've put out there. About 10 years ago, we reviewed that land management plan at Alford, and those land management plans are reviewed by a citizens advisory committee. And they said to us, you know, hey, we love the trails that you have, but we really think Leon County is missing an opportunity and a user experience of a more kind of intimate trail. As many of you may know, our trails up to this recent 5 miles of single track trail have been multi-use, multi-purpose trails, and typically very wide. So anything from 10 to 12 feet wide. This newer section of 5 miles of trail at Alford Greenway was constructed with a very different feel in mind for our users. So you can now experience Alford either in these wider trails, if that's your comfort level, or you can explore them through the forest in a more canopy environment and enjoy the single track trails there. Now, even though they are single track trails, they are still multi-use. And when we constructed them, our construction team, Trail Dynamics, was aware that they would be multi-use and designed them specifically with that in mind, so that there would be lines of sight that would be appropriate for bikers, hikers, and equestrians. Additionally, on those new trails, we tried some different approaches in terms of bikers will go one way on certain days of the week and hikers and equestrians go a different way. And we have found that to be successful in creating a more safe environment for all of those multi-uses. In terms of exotic and invasive species control, we work tirelessly on that as well. In controlling these exotic and invasive species, this really allows for restoration of our conservation lands and creates the environment for native species and ground covers to really flourish. But it takes a lot, as you can imagine, to stay on top of that. And again, my team is very aware of what they see and try and control that as soon as we see something occurring. And then the last feature here is that I want to talk about tonight is the cultural and historical resources piece. Again, we have a rich history here in Leon County, And by all means, we want to make sure as land management managers and stewards of these beautiful properties that we're respecting that heritage and those historical and cultural resources. And so that is a part that is included in our land management plans and provides, our prescription for how we manage those resources. And when we do trail construction projects or any other types of improvement projects on these properties, this becomes a key feature in what we look for before we undertake those construction activities. I want to move now into some of our upcoming county projects and talk a little bit about those. Apalachee Regional Park trails. Apalachee Regional Park has become, let me back up. It actually is located out at our former solid waste management facility. And the Board of County Commissioners determined that they no longer wanted to use that as a landfill. And so several years ago in 2017, they adopted a master plan for Apalachee Regional Park to convert all of that land ultimately to a full regional park. Today, we operate out there with a premier cross-country course, and soon we'll be opening some new facilities out there, a small stage, an operations building, and a finish line that will help bring additional economic development to our community for these sporting events, for cross-country events, or potentially even biking events. Additionally, though, the master plan calls for another 10 to 12 miles of trail to be constructed out on that property. And we're very excited about that. And that is in phase 2 and in design now. So those trails, we are intending to be single track, but in this case, they will be single use. So we'll be separating those between the biking trails and then the hiking and running trails. At this time, we are not contemplating equestrian use out there. St. Mark's Headwaters Greenway is one of the ones that Donna mentioned in her newspaper article. Today, we have a small trailhead that sits on Bond Road and provides access to about 2.5 miles of trail. And the way that trailhead was designed was that it has a large parking area for equestrian trailers. It'll hold about 10 trailers, and a smaller area for just regular passenger vehicles. But what's on the table, and we are at 90% plans right now for the second trailhead there at St. Mark's Headwaters Greenway, and it will be located on Buck Lake Road. That trailhead will look more like an Edenfield trailhead, if you guys are familiar with the Edenfield trailhead on Okahiki Greenway. This new trailhead at St. Mark's will hold about 30 to 40 cars. It will have a permanent restroom facility. It will have a nature-based playground, and it will have a new, like a bicycle, small bicycle skills course for people that they can kind of learn how to navigate boardwalks and that sort of thing. And then it will provide access to about 4 miles of trail that will have boardwalks and overlooks on some of the beautiful areas out there. There's some just fantastic locations with cypress knees and other just fantastic forests that these 4 miles of trail will wander through. It will eventually connect to the 2.5 miles of trail that is already existing out there. And so users can travel that full property for just a variety of experiences. Lastly, I want to talk about Okahiki Greenway and Crump Road trailhead improvements. So if any of you have visited that trailhead, that's the easternmost trailhead on Okahiki Greenway. And it's a beautiful shaded parking lot. So we definitely, when we embarked upon this project, said we don't want to lose any of that shading. But we do know we have some significant erosion issues going on out there. And again, part of our land management plan says we need to control for that and be good stewards of that and prevent that. So we're looking at doing some erosion control out there, realigning the parking, providing a water source that has been lacking out there, and then kind of consolidating where our current ADA features are. So right now there's a ADA portalet out there, but it is separate and apart from the ADA parking pad that's out there. So clearly we want to make sure that those are adjacent to each other and make more sense than they do today. So I just kind of put this slide up because I mentioned those first two projects, Apalachee Regional Park Trails and St. Mark's Headwaters Greenway. And this kind of shows you St. Mark's Headwaters Greenway is up here on the easternmost side, circled in red, and then Apalachee Regional Park is kind of right here in the center. But I am just so proud of this community and the commitment that they have made to our natural resources and connecting all of these properties. And one of the fantastic resources is the Greenways master plan. And that master plan then is being taken by our blueprint agency, and they have multiple projects that will be funded over the next 20 years to create all this connectivity for our community. So this is a representation of what that connectivity will ultimately look like. This would be the Lafayette project, and it would run from the easternmost St. Mark's all the way over to the western Tom Brown Park. And it would connect all of these properties in between, both owned by the county, the state, and the city. And once this linear park is completed and all the connections made, it will be collectively total more than 7,200 acres of natural lands and conservation lands. And I just think that's an amazing thing for our community. And I want to just highlight that and make sure that everyone's aware of what our community is doing with the support of groups like Audubon to make these projects happen. So I think with that, I will turn it over to questions, and Dara's going to help me a bit with those. This last slide, though, is my contact information here, and please feel free to contact me at any time. For a full listing of our parks, you can go to leoncountyfl.gov parks, and that will give you all of the listing of our parks, active, passive, greenways, and each of those have a map link to it, so that if you're not sure where that is, you can click on the map and you can see how to get there. And then I've mentioned Blueprint organization, and you can learn more about all of their projects, not just the one I showed here, the Lafayette project. And then Tallahassee is another great resource because it not only covers Tallahassee and Leon County, but it also expands to our region. So it will focus on trails in Wakulla and some of our state parks and national parks as well, or national forests, I should say. So Dara, if you can help me with questions, I will end there.
All right, thank you so much, Leigh. And would you mind stopping your screen share?
Sure.
Or you keep it up. It's all right. Oh, but keep your.
Oops, did the wrong one. How about that? Is that what you want? Okay, good.
Yes, thank you everybody for attending. My name is Dara Wilson. I am the communications coordinator for Apalachee Audubon. And thank you everybody for sending in your questions, and I see them coming in. So yes, so let's get started. If you want to keep sending in those questions, please type them in the Q&A box. So yes, so Leigh, excuse me, Robert Stewart asked, he says that he's really impressed with the continuity of the city and county parks. The J.R. Alford Greenway seamlessly connects with the Lafayette Heritage Park and Tom Brown Park. Can you please speak on the city-county working relationship?
Yeah, I just applaud the city. They are doing a fantastic job as well. And we do rely on each other in terms of just our teams talking back and forth. The project that he mentioned is an excellent one, because we saw once the city built that fantastic bridge over the railroad tracks, our use at Alford Greenway, the trailhead at Pedrick, just intensified. And so you can go from Alford Greenway all the way over to Lafayette Heritage Park. You know, as public servants, our hope is we know you guys don't care who manages the property. You just want a great user experience outdoors, learning about nature. And so the more seamless we can make that, the better. And so both of our teams work together in that effort, so that you're not worried about whether or not you're on a city property or county property, and you can be assured that you're going to get a same fantastic experience on either.
Awesome, thank you. Are there any plans to construct a walking trail connecting, I hope I don't butcher this, Okahiki Prairie Park to Magnus Arm on Lake Jackson? It's a really great birding area, and it would be a really great addition to the park.
That's an excellent question. So that's McGinnis Arm. That there is a blueprint project that's in the works. And in fact, I have a conference call with them next week to talk about kind of that Lake Jackson connectivity project. I'm not sure yet. I haven't seen the alignment of that. I know one of the things we were working on, though, was actually connecting Okahiki Prairie Park to the Lake Jackson Indian Mounds. So we were trying to use Blueprint as kind of our liaison to work with the state to actually make that connection. And then the plan is for that Lake Jackson connection to run from there all the way down to Lake Ella. Again, I'm not sure exactly where McGinnis Arm fits into that, but we will soon be learning more about the proposed trail alignment for that.
Awesome. Okay, Ellen Forner asks, says that they love the new signage at Alford. What are the plans for signage at St. Mark's Headwaters?
So we do know that it's lacking there, so I appreciate that. But as part of the new trailhead project that we'll be implementing, we'll be including signage in that as well when that is constructed.
Okay. Ann Evans asks, what's your program to get pet waste bags not left on sides of trails?
That's an excellent thing. That's probably something Audubon folks could help us with. You know, we hope that we have responsible pet owners out there, but you know, some aren't. So certainly, you know, my staff looks for those, but we may not always see them as frequently as, you know, the users do and that sort of thing. Short of signing it and doing our best to just make sure they're picked up, I don't have a fantastic answer for that. So if you have some great ideas, I'd love to hear what they are.
Understandable. All right, are trail maps available to download and print for each of the greenways?
I would have to check. I hate to say I don't think they are readily available. We are trying to do better at all of our kiosks at the front of the greenways to put the map there in hopes that people could also just take pictures of them as they enter the trail system. But that is definitely something I will look at, and we can do our best to make available.
Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to go through. There's a lot now. Okay. What is the status of the Debbie Light Say Nature Park?
That is actually a blueprint project, so I'm not completely familiar with that. Again, I would encourage you, if that's something you're interested in, to log on to the Blueprint IA. I think it's blueprintia.org. And you could either find a phone number, and I'm certain their staff would be happy to share with you the most recent progress on that project.
Got it. Oh, how many employees would you say that you have?
I have 30 employees that manage the 3,900 acres of land.
3,900, that's a lot. Okay.
Small but mighty, small but mighty. That's what we like to say.
Got it. Okay. Let me see. If I see someone feeding wildlife at a county, city, or neighborhood park, should I report it? If so, whom should I contact? I often see people feeding wild birds at the park that used to be called Chapman Pond. I think that's now called Evans Pond.
Okay. I think you're welcome to report it. So the Evans or Chapman, I believe that's a city facility. It's not one of ours, but certainly you can do that. Again, I in all transparency, will share with this group that enforcement is certainly an issue for us. So while you may see it, and we may try and get staff there or whatever, the odds of that person still being there when we get there is challenging. I would encourage you, if you see that, maybe to, many of you are experts as it relates to wildlife and protection of wildlife, and maybe take an opportunity to educate that family or that person on and why that can be hazardous to the health of wildlife and causing them to kind of rely on food sources that might not otherwise be there. So those would be my suggestions, but you're always free to call us and notify us of that. Just the chances of us actually being able to engage with that person might be challenging.
Got it. All right. Howard Hayes asked, Alford Greenway has several old farm fields. I noticed one was being converted into a longleaf pine. I also noticed what appears to be recently tilled areas. What are the plans for converting some of these fields to native natural communities?
So I guess I would have to say, well, what does he consider native natural communities? I mean, this is, and maybe can he expand on that, Dara?
Okay. Howard, if you're still here, if you would type in the Q&A, could you expand on that question, please? Lee would really appreciate that. Okay. Susan Kaysen asks, are QR codes for maps available at each Greenway?
No, we have not done the QR codes at them.
Okay. Oh, Howard, I think Howard typed in habitat typical for our area.
Okay. I guess I'm still a little confused, Howard. I mean, that is how we're managing those. So when you see those disking, that's when I talked about the food plots and that sort of thing. So the habitat that it draws is everything from deer to wild turkey to, snakes and all of the other wildlife habitat. And then of course, when we do the tree planting, same thing in terms of even flora and fauna and different wildlife, birds and that sort of thing. So again, back to our land management plans, that is our prescription. That is how we are instructed to manage these properties so that they are restoring and improving our natural communities.
Awesome. Okay, Brian Weinstein asked, can you discuss further plans for the Fred George Basin Park?
Sure. So for Fred George, our hope out there is to eventually do some boardwalks as well in that area. Fred George has a lot of really low-lying areas, and those areas stay wet a good portion of the time. But there is a really nice sink up on the northern edge of it, and so we would like to do boardwalks out there and some observation decks as well, and then add the signage component, of course, that's missing from out there as well.
Awesome.
That, and just to say in terms of timing wise, that would come after we bring online St. Mark's, the second trailhead for St. Mark's.
Got it. Jim asked, are there any improvements planned for the Northeast Park located off of Proctor Road?
So Northeast Park is, yes, Northeast Park, there's actually, I will share with the group that there's actually an agenda item on Northeast Park on Tuesday night on the Board of County Commissioners meeting agenda. I think it is agenda item number 23. Anyway, I would encourage people to go look at that. There is some discussion about whether or not Northeast Park will be relocated, but definitely there is $10 million in funding in the blueprint dollars to start the design and permitting of the Northeast Park, wherever that location ends up being.
Awesome. Give me one moment to catch up. We have a mix of comments and questions. At Lafayette Heritage Trail Park, will Bill's Trail be rerouted to a different location?
So Bill's Trail, we've had a lot of questions on this recently. Bill's Trail is a really popular trail, and it actually has kind of an art feature on it. That trail is actually on Leon County Schools property, not our property and not the city property. My understanding just this week is from some kind of informal information I've been getting is that there is discussions about that trail being relocated and the art exhibit being relocated, but the exact details of where haven't been really released yet. I'm not sure if I'm at liberty to talk about where it's being contemplated, but yes, there are community efforts to relocate that trail and the art exhibit.
Okay, let me see. When will the general public have access to Upper Lake Lafayette, behind where a new development is currently under construction, behind the Costco?
Right, behind, that's in the Falls Chase development. I am frankly not exactly sure of what that timeline looks like. Again, Blueprint has a project that they're looking at doing about 50 acres of a trail around it. I don't know what the status of where they are in that project. The other piece that part of that Falls Chase plan development calls for the county to receive some acreage as well. When we get that acreage, that would probably be converted to our trailhead piece of it, and we would make access at that point in time. But I don't have a timeline for when that acreage will be transferred to the county.
Got it. Okay, Donna asked, are food plants planted in the food plots, and for what wildlife?
Again, the food plots are planted typically at Alford, and you know, I think the best way to talk about it, Donna, is while it's planted maybe for deer, but it creates a lot of habitat for other animals as well. So from very, you know, small that can kind of hide out under the food, you know, under the growth, all the way up to the deer that's feeding off of it. But predominantly we plant it for you know, really all sorts, but deer, wild turkey, you know, on down to our very smallest furry friends.
Got it. All right, and we're almost done here. Can you tell, Marion asked, can you tell me where I can find trails that have boardwalks?
Marion, if you can talk a little bit more about what like qualifies in your mind for boardwalks, because again, some of our passive parks like Okahiki Prairie Park, for me has boardwalks on it. But that may not be kind of your vision of a boardwalk. So does she have her own definition?
Over swamps, she just amended it.
I see, yeah.
Right. Over swamps, cypress trees.
I'm trying to think. So again, I mean, I think you could think about probably not really a boardwalk, but again, the city's structure over the railroad tracks. That has a beautiful look out onto Lake Lafayette. That I highly recommend that. Again, you can always park at Alford Greenway and then follow the trail over to to that city structure that goes over the train tracks. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. That's a great question. Other boardwalks. So again, out at Apalachee Regional Park, while it's not a boardwalk, part of this brand new construction that we've just done is we've added 3 observation platforms. So while it's not a boardwalk, you can certainly take the trail and then get to observation platforms. And again, those now will have some beautiful views of Lower Lake Lafayette. And then while not necessarily over Cypress, again, I would encourage you to check out Okahiki Prairie Park. It's one of our loop trails, one of our passive parks, and it does have some boardwalks that go over water, which is basically a stormwater pond, but go over water. And it actually has some really fantastic birding opportunities out there.
Let me see. So we have a question about accessibility. I'm not sure if I asked this question. Gary was asking about J.R. Alford Greenway, and they're wondering if the land connects to the upper portion of Lake Lafayette Arms, and if that could be made more accessible. I'm not sure if I asked that.
Alford Greenway.
I'm
trying to put the map in my head. So it connects really mostly to Lower Lake Lafayette. I would have to look at that, and he can give me a call and we can kind of go through maps together and look at that.
All right. Let me see. Again, about pet waste. Someone asked if pet waste receptacles can be located along trails.
We can certainly take a look at that. Part of the balance that we try to find is once you get on a trail, putting a bunch of infrastructure out there, be it signs, be it trash cans, whatever, can sometimes erode the experience that you are having just to be in nature. The other issue that it provides for us as a maintenance team is that, for instance, if you're putting signs out there and signposts, then it creates another place that we have to weed it around or mow around. And so it can prevent some maintenance challenges. We're certainly happy to take a look at that, but our hope is, of course, as responsible users, that kind of the terminology I think that sometimes the National Forest use is like bring out whatever you take in, and so certainly our hope would be that responsible users would ensure that they're bringing that out with them and disposing them in the receptacles that we do provide at the trailheads.
Gotcha. Ooh, I like this one. Laura asks, are there active geocaches at these parks, and which ones?
So we don't keep a listing of where they are, but we do authorize them. So what we ask, and my understanding is that kind of the governing body, if you will, of geocaches like to know that as well, that the property owner is aware that they are there. So frequently we will get requests on placing geocaches on our properties. And then we just ask, there are certain requirements that you not put them in a maintenance area, that folks understand that they might walk off, that we're not responsible and then for them. And then we ask for a description of whatever that geocache is, so that if my folks come up on an ammo box, they aren't alarmed by seeing an ammo box there and know that it's actually a geocache or something along those lines.
Got it. Okay. Are there any plans for a parking lot at Goose Creek on Buck Lake Road for access to Lake Alford trails?
We have talked about that internally as staff, but right now there are no plans, definitive plans in the work for that. But that is a location that would be suitable, I think, to do some sort of small potential trailhead there.
Okay. Sorry, let me scroll through. So is the Crump Trail being smoothed out in response to an ADA compliant or just to be proactive to compliance?
It's really being smoothed out to be coming to compliance again with our land management plans in terms of erosion control, and then just making sense as it relates to the flow of what's already out there in terms of the ADA accommodations.
Got it. Are there any plans to connect the Miccosukee canopy to Row Greenway?
To which Greenway?
I'm not sure.
So it's Miccosukee.
Canopy.
No.
So Row Greenway. I'm sorry, it was a bit of a mistyping.
Are they trying again, maybe?
Let me just move on. Let's just move on. When Bill's Trail is moved, will we still be able to hike around the lake on the same side of the railroad tracks?
Again, I'm not familiar with that. I am not really certain if when folks are talking about Bill's Trail, if they're talking about the art projects or the actual trail itself. Again, that's not on Leon County property, so it's my information on that is more informal than anything else. So I'm just not familiar with the layout of that trail.
Got it. Okay, a boardwalk over the lake's edge is at Marjorie Turnbull Park over Old Bainbridge Road at Lake Jackson. Is that a question? I'm not sure that's a question. Okay, let's move on.
That's J. Lee Voss Park, but
okay.
I know what park they're talking about.
Okay. I want to say this is our final question. Are there volunteer opportunities with the county park system?
Yes, certainly we have cleanup days and those sorts of things. If you, I know Donna and I were talking about possibly also about how Audubon could potentially get involved, especially once COVID is behind us. We would love for your organization to possibly do some educational events out at any of our greenways for us. Part of our land management plans, again, and going back to kind of what governs us as we manage these properties, part of our land management plans call for us to do educational programming at least 2 a year at these facilities. And clearly with a staff of 30, we need help in doing that. So we would love for the organization to get involved in organizing an education event, and and then other volunteer opportunities. Sometimes we have lake cleanup days, or we have opportunities at other parks to put down, we have like annual mulching projects and those sorts of things. So if you just want to reach out to my office, we can plug you in and put you on a list for when those opportunities become available. Or we can organize one if you've got a group of people that want to do something.
Well, great. Thank you so much. And I guess that's it. Leigh, is there anything else that we should be asking, or is there anything else that we missed?
Just please know that we are here, and we again always appreciate the extra set of eyes and ears on the ground for us. With a staff of only 30, as you can imagine, trying to get around to all 3,900 acres can sometimes be challenging for us. So if you see something that doesn't look like the level of service that you're accustomed to, if you can reach out to us first and give us an opportunity to address that, we greatly appreciate it. And so that's extremely helpful. And I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight, and thank you for your interest in Leon County Parks, and just say, get out and enjoy them.
Great. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Leigh, for joining us. And thank you everybody who attended. We're so grateful for your time. Please join us next month for our Wakulla Springs Forest dedication. We'll be so happy to have you. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Leigh, and thank you all. Please have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.